Hi, I'm David Gale, and this is ACTRAToronto at Home. We're turning the focus of this vlog to our volunteer committee chairs. Some of you may not be aware of the incredible amount of work that's done by these members. Our union depends on its volunteers, so for now, we'd like you to hear about the outstanding work being done by some of our most generous and involved ACTRAToronto members, our committee chairs. Today, I talked to councillors Lisa Michelle Cornelius and Samora Smallwood, who co-chair our extremely active Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Samora and Lisa Michelle are both outspoken opponents of anti-Black racism and work relentlessly for their committee and for the industry. And they juggle this volunteer work with growing careers and families. How do they do it? Let's find out as I talk to them at home. Hello, Lisa Michelle. Hello, Samora. How's it going? Let's start with you, Samora. What's going on in your Corona life?
Well, you know, it's tricky because you're navigating that line between taking care of yourself and your mental health and trying to stay focused on your acting work. And then sometimes what's happening in the world is feeding your work. And then sometimes you need to take a breather from it, and especially with just all the really heavy stuff that's going on surrounding anti-Black racism and police brutality. You can't step away from it because that feels disloyal. So you're just in it all the way. So there's a lot going on. So any members watching and feeling that too, some of the days when you just don't have don't have what it takes to be productive, that's okay too.
Thank you for that permission. That's very important.
Trying to give it to myself,
as we all do, and love ourselves in the process. Lisa Michelle, how are you holding up?
Very similar to exactly what Samora was describing, like staying engaged, trying to stay educated and educating, and at the same time preserving mental health, realizing that existing as a Black woman is resistance and activism in itself, and thriving at that. So balancing, taking care of myself, taking care of my family, spending quality time with my family, because as devastating as this pandemic has been from the start, trying to capture the positive aspects of it, in that I'm home with my family. We're spending more time together than we ever have. So I don't want to squander that, because who knows which direction life will take us next. And then of course, with the current anti-Black racism movement, definitely so much to what Samora said, like definitely wanting to not rest too much, even when you're feeding yourself and taking care of yourself, not resting too much, because as we've heard so often, it's so important to keep your foot on the gas. Like right now, we need to make good out of all of the bad that has been going on forever, but particularly right now, we have to strike while the iron is hot, while people are listening, while higher ups are most often at home. Right now, now's the time to start knocking on and pushing down doors that maybe were left alone for too long.
You know, before we move on to the pushing down doors, which is ultimately of importance to what we're talking about, even in committee work, how are you managing with small children, explaining the situation to them, or are they unaware?
With my own small child, I have a 5-year-old who's an ACTRA member as well. To be honest, I'm letting her encounter things as she would encounter them. I'm not trying to dump the world on a 5-year-old's head. At the same time, she's so far from being ignorant, because she's quite savvy as well. So she's aware of what was going on with COVID to a degree, but she's lesser aware of the very specific anti-Black racism movement. She's just starting to know herself and see herself as an image, as an appearance, as opposed to just being. She is starting to notice more that, oh, these people look different, and oh, some people may be treated differently because of the way they look. And then so just coaching her on the level that she's receiving and understanding things, that's the level I'm coaching her at. I think the magnitude of the current movement is a bit heavy for her head, and for her heart. And she's such a bright soul. I need to balance not making her ignorant of these things, not having her live in a fantasy land, but at the same time, letting her continue on with the confidence and the strength and the boldness that she has, because that's the energy we're going to need going forward. That is the energy we're going to need. So it's, for me, the biggest part is continuing to foster the confidence, the strength, the pride that she has. That to me is also part of the resistance, building people up.
True. And I guess answer questions when they're asked.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
absolutely. Or even as they come up, because she may not always ask a question
Mhm.
outright, but if I can see a topic now she's become aware of, like we'll talk about often, especially around our industry, how representation matters, and it really does. Like she notices when she goes to school, because the area we live in is multiracial but still predominantly white, and she didn't really notice our skin color until she started going to school and being like, oh no, there's only two, she counted them, there's only two brown kids with brown skin, as she says, because she doesn't understand the concept of race, but she just knows that they have brown skin at my school. And then I let her know that, like, well, great, like, you know, make friends with them, and everyone is kind, and treat everyone the way they treat you and how you want to be treated, and letting her place emphasis on that, but answering any questions that come up along the way. So she's just starting to get into the idea of her skin color and the significance of that.
Mm-hmm. What a year to gain this type of awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many huge things happening. So what do you hear from your committee members, from your constituents in this time? And that's, I know it's a pretty general question, but what's front of mind right now for them, do you find? Maybe Samora?
Oh
I mean,
my
I can
gosh.
start rambling. I just didn't want to keep, I was already talking, so I didn't want to
Absolutely
overrun.
No.
I just want to touch on one very important thing that Lisa Michelle said a moment ago.
Okay.
And she said a lot of important things.
Mm-hmm.
Her daughter, this ACTRA member, is a wonderful bright light. And God gave that girl as a blessing to the world. So
thank you.
That's it. What you're saying, like when I become a parent, that's what you want to do, is let them lead the way with their light, but also answer their questions as they come along. And a funny anecdote, my nephew, who's 8, sent me a picture, and he drew a massive picture of me. My head is very large, so it was accurate. But I was half brown in the photo, and then he ditched that crayon, and then I was like a very peachy color, not the right color, right? But Crayola now is releasing a box of crayons with all different shades. So that's one cool thing that kids will have
great.
that we didn't have growing up. So I called him and I said, Leo, what's up here? What happened? I'm half brown. He said, well, I looked at it and thought, that's not the right color. And he goes, but the other color wasn't the right either. And he said, but you're like me. It was the sweetest call ever. He has no idea what he means or what he's talking about, but it's like his little kid brain is trying to figure it out. For our members, there's a lot, because we had our town hall, and then we had our diversity and inclusion committee meeting in the middle of everything. I think one of the things, and a lot of the stuff the members are feeling, they've been feeling way before this spotlight got shown on it. And there have been initiatives that Lisa Michelle and I have been working on and keeping in mind with what we know our members want and what we experience ourselves, because we're performers first.
Mm-hmm.
So more of an equal playing field, more opportunity to play larger roles that don't live in stereotype, more acknowledgement of the tacit discrimination or inherent biases or racism that takes place in the casting world, more accountability for productions in who they see and who they hire. And from the union, our members, one of the best parts for me was that getting all the emails and messages across social media about members that want to get more involved, because Lisa Michelle and I can't do everything ourselves, and we'll need help, especially when it comes to campaigning and letter writing. We're hoping to activate and galvanize our members that way. But I know that some of the initiatives we're working on in terms of getting our members more opportunities to be seen by casting and production, and more opportunities to create strong demo reel footage, those are some of the things we feel proud of. But what else are our members looking for, Lisa Michelle, historically and also in this moment?
And what they're saying. And what they're saying.
I feel like in this moment, like Samora said, there is more engagement. So we do have the support of some dedicated members, definitely not overlooking them, but we do see that more people are like, hey, I've been on the sidelines, and being like, I'm here, I'm ready to, like, they're ready to be our soldiers, not our soldiers, but their own soldiers, because this is a member run organization. So I think people are ready to, like, take the stories and maybe the experiences that they've had having to do with anti-Black racism or racism in general that they've definitely stepped over and swallowed and buried deep inside. They're ready to spit them out now and eradicate it out of our industry. So they're excited about the members that have always been with us, they enjoy the initiatives that we put forth that empower the artist. I think what a lot of folks are looking for now is a bigger, not bigger than, well, I guess in a way, bigger than the initiatives. They want us to use our collective power, our collective voices to knock over the rest of the industry. So it's like, yes, we have the initiatives that make us better artists and that connect us with other creators, so that actors are connecting with writers and filmmakers, because we know that's where the work starts and that's where you'll get written into the story if you are with and mingling and are known to the people who create stories. But what I think I've been hearing, or at least how I've dissected it, is that they're like, great, those are all great. Now that I feel, what happens now when I feel empowered and I feel like I'm equipped and I feel like I have all the skills? Where are the opportunities? Where are the opportunities for people who look like us? And are we being treated fairly? Because we heard way too many specific anecdotes about just blatant racism that
can you, without naming any names, can you
I can definitely share without naming any names, because they didn't, to be honest, they didn't name a name either, but they said someone they knew in casting. They were assisting with a casting director, and the self-tapes came in, and the ones with actors of color were not getting forwarded to the producer. So not based on the fact that they weren't good enough, just that the casting director, whether they were well-intended or not, they just knew that that's not what the producer was looking for. Yet this is the call that was put out as open ethnicity, knowing full well these roles were not going to Black performers or performers of color. So like my heart bleeds. It's crazy. My heart bleeds when I think of the work and the time that any of us put into our tapes. And then selfishly, I was thinking about all the times, especially during COVID now, waiting till my daughter's asleep and my husband, who's not an actor, having to train with me and go line for line with the script and all the days, or if you get days before to prep. And then to know that someone is willfully wasting my time, giving me false hope, collecting my tape, my work, which is not, what we do is not mining, no disrespect to miners, but we put our hearts and our souls and our emotions, and we draw on our life experiences to put these things on tape sometimes. And I think folks were extremely disheartened to hear something like that. And there were other instances of something being on a breakdown for a specific race, then finding out that they cast a white actor and just painted them down. And not just where stunts are concerned, because that's a whole other issue, but the fact that this is still like happening and it's happening to Indigenous actors as well.
For those who don't know, painting down is making a light or white non-BIPOC actor, making them appear that they are.
Right. And this happens a lot in Indigenous communities because it's a little bit more, I guess, difficult to paint and more obvious and blatant to paint a white actor as a Black actor, but it happens a lot more to Indigenous communities because a lot of people can look Caucasian and not be Caucasian. So then they use that in a lot of ways, and people claiming to be Indigenous and they're not. So there's a whole thing out there. And I think people, above all else, like, it's not to say that all the work that Samora and I and all the other co-chairs, Sedna, Farah, everyone who's been working, Jani, everyone, Tabby, it's not to say any of our work has been in vain. I think what people are looking for is to be like, those initiatives are amazing and they empower us as individuals, but if the industry is not fair, we need to tackle that as well. Like, we need to get that as well. So it's just figuring out how can ACTRA use our influence to knock over the rest.
And Lisa Michelle actually touches on a really, really, really to the soul, I feel it to the soul issue about what non-white performers face in the industry. And in breaking, as like, our diversity and inclusion committee is not just ethnic and cultural diversity, right? It encompasses LGBTQ plus, differently abled members. So all those intersections really matter as well. But the fact of what Lisa Michelle is saying that can be so painful for the instances and the examples that you gave is when you realize that a craft is not a meritocracy.
No.
We know the world isn't, right? And I think it cuts it can really shine a light on both sides of it, because you have non-BIPOC performers and white people, and even people who want to be allies, who really take offense to talking about white privilege. But it doesn't mean that you aren't good. It doesn't mean that you aren't good. It just means that you were given that opportunity to show that you're good, and a real chance to get a look at your good. Because what Lisa Michelle is saying that can really, really hurt is when you put in work. And as actors, everybody who watches who's an actor knows this. Sometimes you get parts and they're good, they're well written, they're whatever. And then sometimes you get parts that really matter, and that would really matter to you to play, that would make a huge difference in leveling up in your career, that would really change the game for you. And those are the times when actors put in a lot of work. And we all know what the craft entails and what your prep can entail. And the closer in tune you get to that character, and it can be very painful to realize that it doesn't matter sometimes how good you might be
and how hard you work.
Right. You were never going to be considered.
Or you might, and you just might never hear anything, especially now we're moving into self-tape. So I feel like this is going to be an important conversation, because there's so many times where the network, the broadcaster, and casting producers cast a broad net, and actors, you put in a lot of work. And like, anecdotally for me, I was at an event during TIFF, an event with you, Lisa Michelle, and we were there in our dual capacity as performers, but also as diversity and inclusion committee co-chairs.
Which event?
Which you always
we go to
are.
a lot of little fancy things.
We went to a DGC event. And
okay, yep.
I had done an audition that really, really mattered to me, for a woman whose husband was on death row, and we were going to lose him. And it touched such a deep part in me as an artist. And I'm sure many people watching can relate to a time when a role really did touch you in that way. And I just was so wide open in that audition, and I gave everything I had to it, and I just couldn't stop thinking about her. And it was like God or the universe or whatever you believe in knew that and wanted to just let me know. I was at this event, and the director of the episodes, who is, I can't say his name because it'll give it away, but he's a really important director of color, crossed the room, and I saw him coming towards me, and I was like, oh no, he's going to want to talk about the audition. Oh no, oh no, oh no, what am I going to do? Or maybe he doesn't want to, and all I'm going to be thinking about is the audition. But he came over to tell me, you were my first pick, and you were the showrunner's first pick. But they, I don't know who they is, they didn't want to go exotic with the role.
Exotic.
And when I always do my due diligence and looked up who booked it, it was a very talented actress, a white actress, very talented woman, but a white woman. And I thought, wow, this is where we're at in our industry. I'm a biracial Black woman, but I'm so fair, and I'm exotic for the role. And I think that that's the conversation we need to have, because I probably would have had a better chance booking that part if I wasn't going to be in a romantic relationship with the lead, who was a white man on the show. So I think there's that conversation that needs to be had as well.
But we see it on our commercials. Like we see multiracial couples all the time on commercials. So do you think that they're braver in the commercials than they are than actual in film and TV?
What do you think, Lisa Michelle?
That's a good question.
I think they're selling something, and they've crunched the numbers, and they realize that.
But wouldn't the producer be selling something as well, you'd think?
Yeah, but I would have to say that maybe in commercials there's a little bit more flexibility when it comes to race. At least in my experience, other people might disagree. But I've been paired as a couple way more often on a commercial audition in multiracial relationships. Meanwhile, in a lot of film and TV, I'm not paired in a couple at all. You don't really see a lot of Black females in a relationship.
And that's the thing.
If I go through my resume, I don't think most of my characters were in relationships at all.
That's one thing that we really have focused on well before some of the stuff that we do with actor diversity and inclusion is talked to casting. And that's one of the ways that I feel like, especially in Canada, our BIPOC and our non-white performers.
I think we have to say what BIPOC is. I don't know if everyone knows what that is.
Black and Indigenous persons of color.
Right.
And even if you come to LGBTQ plus on its own, whatever your gender or sexual identity is, or your gender identity, but even at those intersections, what Lisa Michelle is saying is so important, because when you look at the resumes of a lot of people, they're typified by their work, job. It's not always relationships. And I think that touches kind of on what you were saying, David, when I was just thinking about it. I was like, well, I think in commercials, nobody really talks that much. So we're not delving into the inner life of these people. And I'm telling you, this was such a hurtful thing to me. And I swear, God, the universe, whatever, just wanted to let me know, you nailed it. You brought this woman to life, because I cared so deeply for that woman and the research that goes into that's such hard work for actors. It's not easy work to go and investigate the criminal justice system and how men of color are wrongfully persecuted, jailed, and then put on death row. And to know that in our industry, a showrunner and a director don't necessarily have the final call. So what Lisa Michelle is talking about is that collective power of realizing when you start out as an actor, you think, I just got to get casting to like me. Casting directors make the final decision. If I get that casting director to like me, and that is so not the case.
No, I mean, it helps, but it's not the whole story. No. You need, the whole industry needs a shift.
So what are the plans for ACTRAToronto's Diversity and Inclusion Committee to move that forward? What type of action can you guys do through the union and through your committee work?
Well, I think it's important to denote that our committee is our committee, and then ACTRAToronto is ACTRAToronto. Not to say that they're separate. They're not at all separate in that way. I just mean that there are things that we do and are committed to do as a committee and as committee co-chairs, and then there's things that I think people are looking towards ACTRA, not necessarily even just ACTRAToronto, maybe ACTRA National, to do to help knock the industry over. And when I keep using that term because it's just how I envision it happening, and that I think Samora and I's initiatives that we push going forward, or that we have already been working on, a lot of that we've inherited from our previous co-chairs, have to do with emboldening the actor themselves, like connecting them with the proper training, getting them in front of amazing master classes and panels and listening in. But I feel like there's still a plan yet to be hatched to do the larger work that needs to be done. We're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to still keep building up actors, Black actors, Indigenous actors, persons of color, our differently abled actors, our LGBTQ plus, and everyone in between, because like Samora said, there's so many intersectionalities between all of these things.
Can you tell us some of the wonderful initiatives that you're working on as a committee?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do often is Working the Scene in Color. It's a live script reading series, and we've been doing it now. Sen and Farah began it during their 10 years co-chairs, and Samora and I have done at least 4 or 5. And it's,
oh my gosh, I think more than that.
Maybe more than that. It feels like a lot. We're on like the 10th edition. But what it does is it connects emerging writers of color. They are largely Black writers, but they are in general writers of color with our ACTRA members. So Samora and I and our committee are involved in the casting of the live script readings of these works in progress. So the significance of that is literally starting from the ground up, building these relationships. So you as a performer now get to meet and collaborate with people making the stories, because you don't know where that story is going to go. And a lot of the writers, even though we say they're emerging writers of color, a lot of them have won script writing contests. A lot of them have been produced on varying levels and things like that. And we've seen there's like specific instances where the actor has gone on to then be cast in that person's short film or whatever it is that they're working on. So it's important to get in where the stories are being created. Since we have a lot of distrust in the rest of the system, once things get like, I shouldn't say distrust, I don't want to be negative. I want to say that since there's a lot of barriers, sorry, what was that you said?
Wariness, but barriers,
a lot of weariness and barriers to go through. This kind of like supersedes a little bit of that and empowers our members to be like, oh, I know a few writers of color. Maybe we could do something small, even if it's not for big money. It could be just as much as writing a scene together specifically for that actor for our demo reel initiative, which I'll let Samora talk about.
And before I talk about that, you just made me think of one of the key things I think that maybe even our own diverse and inclusive members don't always have the words for, and definitely maybe hasn't occurred to our non-BIPOC performers, is being an actor and going in the room is already so tough. You have to have so much confidence, and you hear this from producers all the time. You want the actors to have swagger, and I think especially when you call actors in who are BIPOC for the types of roles that generally and traditionally they get called in for, they require a certain amount of that confidence. And I think one of the biggest things that we have to acknowledge in our industry is when you are constantly feeling like you don't belong, or that you aren't what they want, or that you aren't the norm, that chips away at your choices as an actor and the instincts that you need. And over time, there was a time period for me when I first started with a good rep and first started getting in the room all the time, I would overthink, how should it be with my hair? And I was constantly straightening my hair, trying to be this thing that they like, and wondering, is that what they want? Is this what they want? And it's so belittling to your confidence and your instincts as an actor. How can you do your job if you're constantly wondering how what everyone in the world has accepted as an other, you are an other,
Second guessing
into the story as a lead, or as a main focus, who has a storyline and drives the action forward, and things aren't just happening too. So I think that's really, really important. And in my own work and in my own studio, the Actors Work Studio, I'm constantly making sure that my BIPOC students know, whoever it is that you are, if you have an accent that you have naturally and culturally, you should bring that accent in the room, bring where you come from in the room, work on your general American accent. That's a part of your toolkit as a professional actor, especially in a US service production town like Toronto. But I don't want to hide who we are anymore. Right. I don't want to try and be what somebody else wants. I'm not white and I'm not fully Black. I exist in the middle, and I think nuanced diversity across the board. We need to have a larger conversation about what Canadian Black people are, what the diaspora is, and accepting people's original lens on work, and not just like Lisa Michelle said, having open ethnicity on a breakdown that you have no intention of seeing someone or casting someone non-white for. But our demo reel initiative is really, really important, because a demo reel is often the last thing a producer sees when they're deciding if they can take a risk on a performer. And sometimes it's the first thing. It's a tool you give your rep so that they can talk to a casting about you. You have to see this person. So it's really tricky, because especially for our diverse ACTRA members, a lot of the roles you book in the beginning are small ACTRA roles, and they're service positions, 1 line, 2 line, really impossible to build a demo reel with that and show your skills. And I think it's a harder slog for non-white members. So I meet constantly actors who blow me away with what they can do, and their resume just doesn't reflect that. So that's part of earning your stripes or paying your dues. This conversation is not, and my feelings about it, and I won't speak for you, Lisa Michelle, no one I know is asking for a favor, charity, or a handout. Right. These are talented people. These are people who have spent years on their craft, thousands and thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands of hours, and who can do it. But you have to make sure. And so the demo reel initiative is going to be us, and this is pre-COVID, this would have rolled out by now, but
I know,
in a non-COVID world, or maybe what we are going to do, we have a call set for next week to take some of the action items discussed on our Zoom call to figure out how we're going to roll those out with ACTRAToronto and ACTRAnational, as Lisa Michelle said. But working with our industry partners, Whites has a soundstage they're eager to use, Trinity Street Video for some equipment, the Writers Guild and BIPOC TV and Film, and partnering our actors with those BIPOC writers to write scenes, short 2-hander demo reel scenes that showcase your skills and your abilities and what you can do. And then we have the Real World Film Festival, Tanya Williams. We work with her, and we're going to screen them there. And then we have some of our casting partners who have always shown a willingness and an eagerness to help come out to that screening. So it's something Lisa Michelle and I have worked really hard on and are excited about. And some of the stuff we've done in the past that we know is important is having master classes, whether it's at the ACTRA conference or our partner with the Actors Workshop of Canada, and bringing in VPs of talents from Fox, Hulu, TNT, Lionsgate. So if you're not on the diversity mailing list, make sure that you reach out to us, because that's how you find out about that kind of stuff. And just getting you, because Sutherland, who's an amazing director, if anyone doesn't know, he and his partner Jennifer Holness are such a power couple of Hungry Eyes media.
And we awarded them the Sandy Ross Awards.
Thanks for remembering that.
2 awards ago,
And they did a masterclass. They came out to the conference to do a masterclass. And one of the things that he said that will always stick with me is our non-white performers often have longer in between engagements, and an engagement might even be an audition. So acknowledging that and knowing that we have to accept the barriers that Lisa Michelle was talking about, and understand that the access is not always equal, and whatever we can do to make sure that our actors can stay sharp, and that the whole burden isn't on them.
Yeah, ready to pounce when the opportunities present themselves. Finally,
that's right.
So just to understand, so these demo reels, you're actually going to shoot scenes with people, and use them as a demo reel because they haven't been able to maybe get that job. So because of the limited number of BIPOC parts there are, unfortunately, and
and lead parts, the limited amount of lead parts.
Right. So that's fantastic. How many people who were on this virtual meeting would you say, do you think?
We're on our diversity meeting that we had. We were capped at 100 and we were sold out, if you will.
Oh, that's
it
fantastic.
was, I don't know if,
hear.
I didn't watch the numbers. I don't know if all 100 stayed engaged the whole time, but I know for sure in terms of people who registered, we were over capacity.
And we had a waiting list.
That's what you need. And you couldn't get that kind of number to a meeting. And it's just, that's one of the benefits of this, is that we actually can get huge meetings, we can get huge involvement with people. So tell me, what's been the reaction to you? Recently both of you were interviewed by the Star about what's going on. What's been the reaction to that very honest interview?
I've been feeling largely supported. I hope you can echo that, Samora, as well, that I've been feeling like both peers who have read it, and we've even had casting directors repost it and reflect on it. And I just hope that the networks and the ones doing the green lighting have read it and reflected on it. One comment I saw when someone else had reposted the article, and someone says the thing that drives me crazy all the time in reference to my quote about there not being Black families on TV, or our quote about that. And someone's like, oh, then just write a show about a Black family then.
Just do it.
Okay, there's so many ways to answer that. Okay, first of all, people are doing that. There's a lot of it, Working the Scene in Color shows us there are lots of Black writers writing fantastic things in all genres, not just family shows, but sci-fi and all sorts of things. Are they being funded? Are they being greenlit? Are we seeing them on TV? So thank you. Black people have thought of picking up a pen and writing things. Thank you. That has been thought of. What it needs is support. It needs money. It needs green lights. It needs to be broadcast. That's what it needs. And secondly, I take a specific offense to that when you say that to another performer. So you, not you, David, but the person who wrote this. So you.
Oh no, white person on the screen. Oh no.
So David, you're such a dope ass ally.
You're an awesome ally. Hilarious. No, so it's like a hypothetical, you, white actor, should feel that you should just be able to have an agent, take your classes, get your headshots like all of us, and the opportunities roll in and you just book them. But I should, if I want to be seen as a full fledged human being, I should now pick up an entire skill that people go to university for. And I should write, and not to say everybody has to go to university to write a script, but I'm just saying that it's an
training involved.
There's training involved, and it's an entirely different skill that, to be completely honest, for me personally, that's not a skill that I'm passionate about. I like writing music. I like writing other types of things. I'm not a script writer. I know that right now, and maybe I will be in the future. But I need to learn a whole new skill to have the same opportunities that are in great abundance to my white counterparts. I think that is such an unfair thing to say. So I'd say that's the only part of kind of feedback that I heard that kind of got my hairs up in regards to the article. But
I know what you guys are doing and that you can do, and that is represent. You volunteer countless hours for your members of ACTRAToronto who are in your constituency, your BIPOC members, LGBTQ+, and you're out there. You're not just in the committee room, you're also out there going to events, going to DG things, going to TIP events, and that's where it happens. So you might not be the person who can produce things, but you're out there meeting the people who can produce things and introducing to the people who have the scripts. And that's how it has to happen, right? People have to know that great art is out there and we can facilitate it. And to also understand, if I may, that movies like Black Panther can make a crap load of money. So no one can say that they're not money-making endeavors. Absolutely.
And the thing is that still being, even though there's data now that shows, because Black Panther is not the only Black film to have made money. And there's a great, it's American, but a really great docu thing on Netflix called They Gotta Have Us. And it features huge breadth of Black directors and Black actors talking about the state of Black Hollywood. And I say that because an important point was made in that, talking about Black film is not, Black is not a genre for film. Like they were saying that they still encountered things like when they were promoting a film like Eve's Bayou, and people trying to just say that like, oh, they're trying to market it to the same people as would watch Tupac's Juice. And you're like, just because they're all Black, they're extremely different films, but just literally putting it in the same category. So not even knowing and understanding that Black people are just a fundamental part of economics. Like we're people who spend money like anybody else. Like, so the excuse that, you know, Black films don't make money, or there's only one or two that have, it's just not true, and has been proven with data. So I feel like networks and things that, and not even just any in particular specific instances, but in general, like you hear a lot of those stories, at least I have, with Black creators and filmmakers and script writers saying that they get that like, oh, this is not marketable here, this won't make money here. But you're like, but it's just a film. It doesn't have to be marketed to just the Black people. And even if it was, it probably would still sell out. Like we have the population, and it's been proven time and time again, you can watch and enjoy something with people in it that don't look like you. We do it all the time.
And I think that that's a hard confrontation that producers, directors, audience members, even people who consider themselves allies or non-BIPOC folks, is if you are uncomfortable, or if you right away notice any of the Black people that are in a space or on a screen, and you're waiting for the ball to drop in terms of story, that's something you have to deal with. You really, really have to deal with that, because one thing too that we hear a lot from our members, that I know personally, and it came up in our article in the Star, is what about the stories that are positive and uplifting, or even rooted, even drama? My favorite genre is thriller. Even thrillers where maybe the drama and the driving force of the plot is not to do with race or terror or murder. And we want to see more characters that are Black and BIPOC, and more characters that are LGBTQ plus, where strife and struggle is not the main crux of what's happening for that character. Characters that don't end up dead, characters that you aren't terrified are going to die. And I remember so clearly, people always talk about this post-racial world, and America had a Black president, so they can't possibly be racist. I would I know for me personally, me and my family, when we watched Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and his family walk across that mall, I was scared.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like I was, that feeling that you get sometimes as a person, where you see even in TV or film a Black character show up on the scene, and you're like, okay.
You're like, don't kill them, please. Like, can he just last a few seasons, please?
Okay, so I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. I just want you to say, what do you want to say to the diverse and members of our union, because this is a union video. What do you want to say to them to encourage them to come and maybe do some committee work or get involved?
I would personally love to say that, you know, we've really been appreciating, like Samora said earlier, the engagement that we got, not just in the meeting that we had, but the attendees to the town hall, the emails we've been getting to both our diversity inbox and our personal inboxes. We're with you. And just know that the work is still going. I know some people are disheartened that there's all these conversations, but there's ACTRA is still a union, and it's an organization. So not even just this issue, but every issue takes some time to get to an end result. Like, you have an elected council, which you, the members, have elected. Things have to, and decisions have to go through and be approved by that council. And on the national level, same deal. Anything that we're discussing and talked about, and we've heard so many great ideas from our members, from our past diversity leaders, as you saw in the town hall. So many great ideas and things that need to be done. Don't be disheartened that you haven't heard a wham bam specific, and you have heard some specific actions, but that you haven't necessarily achieved everything that you want to achieve right now. There's process. I believe I feel supported and listened to at ACTRA, and Samora and I have calls and conversations and meetings all the time with our ACTRA leadership, and we're not the only ones. So just know that things are happening. You are being listened to, even if we don't get back to all of your immediate ideas right away. They're not being dismissed. Don't feel dismissed. Know that the work is being done, and the people who are in leadership now, so Tova and Sue Milling, they care. They are listening, and we are on our way to the tangible steps you're all looking for. None of this is a waste of time, and keep reaching out.
And making sure, Lisa Michelle and I are also working with our National Diversity and Inclusion Chair, Tristan Delala, in Montreal, to make sure that the actions that we take will create real and lasting change, and that it won't be what feels like more lip service. I think now we're in a unique time in history, truly, with the pandemic and all of this going on. I really wow, this is intense. But we are in an opportunity, and we have this chance to hold people's feet to the fire. So for me, my advice to our members is, of course, keep reaching out, get involved, take care of your mental health, and realize that we're the only group of humans who ever went through a pandemic and a social justice uprising with social media. So we feel like we're connected to the world, and you're constantly inundated with these images. Don't feel responsible for responding to everything. Choose where you put your energy. And I would say to our members, the place to put your energy right now is in your talent. After this, we will be given opportunities and looks that you might not have gotten before. Don't upset yourself and set yourself up, and don't sabotage yourself. Put in work, even if it's just picking up a monologue or a scene and reading it, not committing it to memory. Just do your work, get ready, because that opportunity is going to come. And if the self-tapes have already started rolling in, when you get a self-tape, my advice is to shoot more than one. Shoot one just for you. Shoot one just for you that shows your specific skills, that thing that you do that nobody else does, and take a real risk. And you get to review the footage after. So maybe you won't like it and you won't use it, but I'm begging you, put more time aside than you need for your self-tapes and shoot one just for you. And send more than one. Now is that time. So be ready, get ready. This is a note to self as well.
Yeah, I love that you added that, Samora, because that was a key learning taken away from one of our master classes. We had the pleasure of having our diversity committee get involved with the Actors Workshops of Canada. I believe it was casting director Mike Page. It might have been the session that we did with him where he talked about we can send more than one take. And I know that seems really obvious, possibly to a lot of people, but I feel like there are a number of performers, and I was in that batch, that worked so hard on the self-tape and then only send one, what I thought was the best of each scene, and that's it. He's like, there has been no rule that says you can only send one, and I've never seen that rule, but it was always a rule in my head that I felt like I had one chance. And that's not to say send 2 takes of redundant performance. It's just, if you genuinely from your core feel like there are 2 great ways to attack this, like
2 versions,
do 2 versions, just go for it. And that's
because we feel sometimes scared to take up space, right? And this moment is going to be about taking up that space. And I just coached an actor last week for this really touching military role, a character who's going through PTSD, and he's a Nigerian actor. He's done a lot of work on his general American accent. But I thought, look at the history of civil unrest and war in your own country. Why don't you just play him like you're back home and just send them both? And he was freaking out. This is not my partner. This is a different Nigerian actor that I know. And he didn't want to. He was so nervous. But then when he finally just gave into it, seeing all the little ticks from his culture, from all the people he actually knows, and the sounds and the body language, it was so wonderful. And I just strong-armed him into sending 2. So what Lisa Michelle is saying is so legit. We're here to take up space. And all the different Q&As that I've been in, now we're in COVID, and like you said, David, Gale, this is a really great time to have the opportunity to join workshops here and there. And I've been hearing that from casting all the time. So it's not, I like one moment, I nailed that moment better in that tape, and I nailed the moment better in this tape. Just the other day I sent a tape, she felt like a tough chick. I'm like, in one of them she's from New York, and in the other one she's just regular. Do it. Invest in your talent, get ready, take risks. While you're at home and you feel like the stakes might be lower, put yourself on tape and take a risk. See what it's like when you just do it wild and you're not worried about
That's
they
great.
want.
Everything.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're in the room with the casting director, often they'll give you two takes. They'll often tell you to do
That's
it
right.
differently. So how
That's
is that different? So great advice, and you are our leaders. There's no
Thank
doubt you
you.
are our volunteer leaders, and we are led well. And keep doing the tremendous work that you're doing, because you give us hope, and you give us a vision of what the future could be like. And we couldn't get there without you. So continue doing what you're doing. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Samora and Lisa
Thank you,
Michelle.
David. Thank you,
It was
Lisa
a great
Michelle.
great interview.